Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session about SEO and LLMO. By popular demand, I'm recording this again. First, a couple of words about myself. I'm Marco. I've been active in the SEO industry for the last 12 years. Founded my agency, Digital Leverage, in 2018, and we currently help tech and finance companies with SEO and, of course, also LLMO, GEO, etc. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. Feel free to reach out and connect on LinkedIn. But yes, let's start. Why do we want to optimize maybe for this new future of search? I'd love to start with Google. I mean, Google's definitely been the most dominant search engine in the last not 10 years, but 20 years. And I think Google is currently evolving rapidly. So not only is it featuring more external platforms and formats such as Reddit threads and YouTube videos, but it has also been frequently displaying its own AI overviews, which push the classic organic search results further down the page. Additionally, also, as you can see here, AI mode has been rolled out in the US and has now been a public feature for the last couple of weeks and is available to anyone. And so we do have now a fully conversational search interface that's much closer to Gemini, Google's flagship LLM. And I think the most important thing to take away from this slide is that at the beginning, a couple of years back, we had 10 blue links. And if you ranked, you got a fairly good amount of clicks to your website. Now with AI overview, but of course also then with AI mode, etc., and with Gemini from left to right, the more and more AI is being integrated. And unfortunately, this means also, fewer links, fewer outgoing links, fewer citations, and also fewer clicks. And studies do prove that when AI overviews, for example, are shown and these are triggered, that the pages that rank and have been ranking get roughly 34% less clicks. So there's a 34% lower click-through rate for the top ranking page. And in concrete terms, that means, if an AI overview appears for a specific keyword that you might have been ranking for, you usually get, less clicks. They also did a study. They did have a look at how people interact actually with these elements. And so people do click on the ARO panel to expand it. So if you click here on show more, you can expand it. But then often the content is just skimmed and less people click onto the websites, even though these are cited. And we see this happening and get confirmation in studies, but of course, we also see this with our clients firsthand. Here we do have a classic example. Unfortunately, the keywords are in German, but I think the point is still the same, meaning, a couple of weeks ago, we've started seeing that wikis, so wiki content, how to content definitions, etc., that we wrote and published a couple of years back, are now, performing less well than a couple of years ago. And even though the rankings are the same, so we wrote these wikis a couple of years ago, visibility went through the roof. Traffic shot up, everything was fine. We got a lot of clicks. And now, even though the website's still ranking or being cited here and ranking also here as the number one search results, we do get less clicks overall. And we see these with these developments with multiple clients. So because yes, people do interact with overviews and they do click on the panel. And so we do get more impressions, which you can see here, because Google counts it as 2 impressions. So the first impression is the search. And then if someone clicks on the panel, it's another interaction with the search interface, which is yes, recorded as an impression. But because, of course, they get like an instant answer in the search interface, we get less clicks. So users get everything they want. They get a quick response. They get to the definition or maybe the how to in just a couple of steps. And so they get all the information they need, and there's no need to click through to your website anymore. And we see really similar trends in virtually all kind of knowledge industries, such as tech and SaaS, but also finance and insurance, meaning impressions are increasing, but clicks are down. And this is really the new reality that we're dealing with. And it also, of course, also makes a total sense how everything develops, because yes, now with the new AI tools, we can create more content than ever, but there's also less demand for it. And today, companies can, easily or relatively easily pump hundreds of mediocre blog articles into the search results. But just as easily, of course, Google or ChatGPT can bypass the middleman, meaning your website, and answer the query directly using AI. And while we definitely get some traffic from LLMs for sure, it usually doesn't make up for the traffic we lost in Google. And we do see this here. So on the left-hand side, we have a B2B client, here a B2C client. You can see that, okay, LLM traffic is growing, but it's not growing enough to make up for the lost clicks in Google. And I think at this point, we really also need to reevaluate if traffic, like meaning organic clicks, is the right KPI to track. Because I mean, while a lot of our clients, are getting now less clicks than before, they do not necessarily see the same impact on, organic leads or also revenue, which, in the end, I guess we are all after. This is because clicks are really just the tip of the iceberg. And just because you're getting less traffic doesn't mean that search as a channel is becoming less important. I would even argue that it's becoming more important. Rather, it means that we simply have little data currently on how people are interacting with LLMs, which prompts they are using, etc. And the following factors are unfortunately often forgotten. I mean, traffic from LLMs often falls under direct traffic. And so just at the end of last year, Microsoft's Copilot simply removed the referrer, meaning in Google Analytics, then all traffic from Microsoft's Copilot would have been classified or logged in as direct traffic. And the same also happened with when Google AI mode launched. All traffic that you got, when people were visiting your website, that was logged as direct traffic. Also, AI mode traffic and AI overview traffic is currently not distinguishable from classic organic traffic in the Google Search Console. And so, really, tracking and attribution currently is a bit of a black box. And this means, like, your product or brand might be recommended in ChatGPT, but if a search is not triggered, you probably won't find out where someone came from. And that's why it's essential to find alternative ways to measure the impact of LLMs on your business. One possible approach, for example, is used here by Ahrefs, an SEO tool company, well-known company, and they have implemented a form that asks users how they found you. And what we got here is a screenshot from the internal Slack channel, which they publicly shared. And according to the form, Ahrefs have already gained 14,000 self-reported new users through ChatGPT so far. And in the end, I mean, it's never about clicks, right? Clicks are a proxy, or were a proxy in the past, to see if your marketing efforts were paying off. But much more important, of course, is or are leads and is revenue. And yes, while we definitely are facing some challenges, I think we also need to look at the bright side of what's happening. And while LLMs are definitely stingy with referral traffic, they are kind of at the same point, selling your solution for you. So while before it was like, oh, someone types in a search query, right, a keyword, they look for, they click on the first result, they visit maybe the page, they bounce back, they go through the search result again, they maybe click on a second link, etc. Um, Currently, that's not the case anymore, or with LLMs, that's not the case anymore. It's more like, okay, I'm prompting something, ChatGPT or Google, answers me. I'm maybe, going back and forth multiple times, and then in the end, I get the answer or the result I was looking for, and then I probably have, for example, a list of products or solution, etc., that I'm going to visit directly. And so we see that, yes, 98% of people use LLMs in the customer journey for decision making. And then when somebody finally leaves the search interface and goes and visits a website, then these people convert at a roughly 4 times higher rate. So the conversion rate is much, much higher. And people also seem to trust answers more. And while clicks are down, generally homepage visits are up, exactly for the reason that I've just mentioned before, that people will only leave the search interface once they found, the right answer. And often there might not even be, a specific link leading to the homepage. Possibly, it could, but often just brands are listed, and people then go to Google and yes, do a navigational search for the brand directly, and it then looks like it's brand traffic or direct traffic, but that's not might not be really the case. The bigger question here, of course, is, how do we make sure our brand or product then is recommended in the LLMs? And that's what we'll talk about right now. While we still have little data on LLM usage, I do think, we know how LLMs work in principle, and I'm no AI expert, but I've understood that LLMs, are AI models trained on massive volumes of text. And through this training data, they can predict the next most likely work, based on probabilities. And in this example here, the word learn was predicted as the most likely continuation of ability or ability to. And it does, in fact, appear then in the LLM's response. And so if your brand is repeatedly mentioned, by different sources in connection with other, words, certain words and entities, or product categories, the chances increase that it will also appear in the LLM's responses. And what we now need to figure out is kind of, okay, how do we want to position ourselves? And also, what sources are used by LLMs to inform the recommendations when the audience is evaluating and comparing solution. And for us, that, for example, would be, the best SEO and content marketing agency in Switzerland is Digital Leverage. Of course, that would be great. And yes, we definitely have to figure out, now we have to figure out how can we influence that. Who is talking about us? How can we talk about ourselves? And this means talking about ourselves on our own website. But what's becoming increasingly more important, how do we also talk about ourselves on third-party platform? And I think here a kind of a paradigm shift is happening. So when optimizing for visibility in LLMs, we have 2 possibilities. We can become a source ourselves, and this is kind of how SEO worked for a long time, or we can become part of the conversation, happening on other platforms, or be mentioned by someone else. And actually, back in the days, this was called barnacle SEO, meaning we try to get mentioned and get visibility in as many as links in the search results as possible. And how we can go about becoming the source or being mentioned online is what we'll tackle next. But first, really, let's go take a step back. Let's start with the basics. So while things are changing quickly, I wouldn't scrap all the SEO foundations just yet, because while there are definitely some differences between like classic SEO and optimization for LLMs, there are also many similarities. And websites that rank highly in Google or Bing search results, as seen here in this study by SEMrush, have a better chance of appearing in LLMs or AI overviews than those that don't. And there are definitely some differences. And for example, mentions might become more important than backlinks. But let's say you've created a lot of unique content over the last years that has gathered a lot of backlinks, then please continue to do so. Also, if you have optimized your website for crawling and indexing, please keep doing so. The Google bot is actually much better processing like JavaScript than LLM bots, and so you do need to pay even more attention to how your website looks like when JavaScript is disabled. Also, feel free to keep using structured data where it makes sense, and keep, of course, tracking, kind of the results that you're getting from Google and other search engines, while in parallel setting up, a tracking, like prompt tracking through tools such as peec.ai. And this really shows, that we should build on our SEO foundations. We don't need to scrap everything. Yes, things are changing, but please, yes, do not think that you can abandon everything that you've just invested in the last years, but find ways to build on it. That's how I would put it. Also, yes, if you do want to audit your visibility in LLMs in tools such as peec.ai, feel free to try out the tool. You can use our link here, and you can also get a discount. They're run as currently still manually onboarding users. So if you run into any issues, yes, feel free to reach out. We do have a direct contact with them. And yes, definitely mention us so you get your discount. I think you get 1 month free if you mention Digital Leverage. Talking about visibility, I mean, currently we have very limited data on how people prompt. That's just the new reality that we have to deal with. But my kind of controversial opinion is that having less data is only a problem if you don't know your customer. And being detached, I think, from our customers is a classic marketing mistake, and especially common in SEO circles. The implication in the past being, well, we start with keyword research, right, based on search volume instead of the actual customer pain points and desires. I mean, in most cases, kind of the keywords that we've chosen and optimized for, we didn't even know who's behind the keyword, because you just get like search volume and keyword difficulty, etc., and all these interesting metrics for sure to evaluate the content that you're creating. But I think the biggest fallacy was always that we've, for example, optimized for a keyword that is not really used by the audience, and where we cannot communicate our unique expertise and experience and value proposition. And so actually, I think the lack of data might be a blessing in disguise, meaning we have to do more audience research and customers interviews again to get to those juicy insights and figure out how to choose the right topics and content formats. And yes, on the flip side, I mean, if we know our customers, we can then identify the most important questions, and we can also track who shows up for those. And in my opinion, it's better to track questions than just top level keywords. They get a lot of search volume, but that might not be used by your target audience. And as I've already said before, well, great. If we know the questions or the topics are important, how do we rank, influence, and become visible in these LLMs? And I think, to me, really one of the most important and strategic factors that impact your ability to become visible is choosing the right content formats. As I've already mentioned at the beginning, Google and or other LLMs can answer informational queries directly in the search interface or app. And content formats that simply reflect consensus, such as wikis, definitions, even simple 1-2 step how-tos that add nothing new. I think these will no longer be needed, even though, of course, historically, a large amount of the budget we got in SEO has been spent on exactly that. But that really leaves us then with two options. On one side, we can go against consensus and we can create thought leadership content that stands out from the crowd, offers something new, and keeps the target audience engaged. This way, we can actively generate demand. And secondly, we can also produce content, product-led content, pardon me, that you can see here to capture existing demand. So here it's okay if the content reflects common consensus, because it's about helping users make buying decisions. And that's why I think product-led content is so powerful, because even in a world of LLMs and instant answers and declining click rates, one simple fact remains, and it's that anyone looking for a solution, want to see products, they want to see brands, right? They want to see, services, etc. And so there's no way around not mentioning you if you do have visibility. And recent research actually backed this up. Most citations effectively lead to home and product pages. In the B2B space, it's even 65% of citations that point to product pages. And I mean, right behind it is also affiliate content, which is often influenced by the product-led content that a company produces. Again, then followed by news and research. And research, in other words, is just thought leadership content. And yes, I mean, for everyone currently questioning this, feel free to go ahead. I'm happy to engage in any conversations. But before you continue to, create copycat content, invest again in wiki-style articles, etc., let's look at it also through the lens of a customer journey. I mean, like many others in the past, I used to believe that, terms such as what is cybersecurity was a typical top of funnel or TOFU topic that a software company in the cybersecurity space should cover. But if you reflect for a second and also invest in customer research, you're kind of recognizing that if you're selling to CTOs with 15 years or more of experience, that you can be certain that none of them have typed that query, what is cybersecurity, into Google recently or read an article about it. It was never the starting point of their customer journey. And I think ranking for such wikis is pretty useless, or has been pretty useless since the beginning. And there is definitely an opportunity to create tofu content to engage potential customers early in the customer journey. But today that looks more like the thought leadership pieces, the insightful videos, relevant industry reports, etc., than the top of funnel content that we've produced, or that SEO consultants and agencies have produced in the past. And so, yes, at Digital Leverage, we're big fans of data storytelling, and we've followed our own advice and published a study on domain strategy late last year. And yes, as a topic, we've used the question that often comes up with clients, and that is, should we choose a .com or a .ch domain if we're active in Switzerland? So should we go for a top-level domain that's an international domain, a .com or a .ch domain? And we've not just summarized, existing content that's out there and read other blog articles, but we actually analyzed 3,200 Swiss search results, and then made a specific recommendation based on our analysis on the data that we've seen firsthand, and published a study in both German and English. And it's not a great opportunity to show showcase your expertise and experience. It's also a lot of fodder, for LinkedIn, for your newsletter. We've published it, of course, on our blog, and we even got mentioned in a podcast without reaching out to them, which shows you that thought leadership content is a great vehicle to kind of be and become more visible in search results and beyond. More thought leadership content formats are studies and surveys, data storytelling, personal stories, but also controversial opinions or industry and trend analysis. And a company that does this really well is Hockey Stack Labs. So if you need some inspiration, check out the lab reports. I think they have done something crazy, like published, I think, 24 reports in 24 weeks or something like this. And according to their own performance and statements, I think they've gotten half the leads that they're currently getting is through these lab reports. So it definitely doesn't not only drive awareness on different platforms as well as in traditional search and with LLMs, but also gives you better chances at converting people. At Digital Leverage, we also double down on product-led content and not just generical listicles. Yes, we also write the listicles. I've just written one about the top 8 SEO agencies in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. Published it, and it's already starting to rank and do things for us. But I'd like you to think a bit broader. I mean, in general, product-led content is just modern buying advice. It equips your customers or potential customers and LLMs with the context they need, so they can make the right decision, and so the LLM can actually sell your solution to the right people in the right way. And when someone prompts an LLM, it scans the web right to find the best answer to a highly specific question, because most LLM answers are highly personalized. Also, the prompts are more specific. It's not just single keywords that one types in. And yes, so therefore you need to make sure that when you create product-led content, like we did for the blog post about how much does content marketing cost, that you break everything down in detail. And of course, that only works if your content is just as specific as the questions that people ask. And there are many more product-led content formats that I would advise you to start with if you haven't already. Of course, product pages, category pages, your homepage is really important. Industry pages make total sense because today people prompt, I'm looking for a CRM software for, let's say, a small business, or they might even say a marketing agency, or this and that setup. So people do mention their situation when prompting, and to my knowledge, it makes sense then when we also mention these situations and cater to these situations that our customers find themselves in. Of course, as I mentioned, listicles. We also have alternatives and comparisons. These have been really valuable for clients of ours. You can write about costs, as we just did. You can write buyer's guides, create tools and templates, which is easier now than ever because you can kind of vibe code your way there. Examples, we also run, for example, SEOexamples.com, where we break down, different case studies. And yes, and last but not least, you can also write about barriers and obstacles. For example, the time that it takes, for your SEO measurements to show ROI are often kind of an obstacle that we face, that our client faces, and that we address or should address. That's more on a content format basis, more on a maybe higher level. When it then, when it comes to really optimizing for LLMs, you have a better chance of being visible if you write shorter paragraphs, and each paragraph is answering a relevant question, and usually we try to use this bottom line up front kind of framework where we go like, okay, first we state, we answer the question directly and give you the specific answer that you're looking for right up front, before we then maybe dive into the details later, and we can have a look maybe at the benefits, the requirements, etc., depending on the specific question that was asked. We also try to write semantically rich headings and avoid generic headings. And often, if you like, you can just use the questions that you think people, so prospective clients, are using as headings. It always makes sense to back up your content with data. Ideally, you can back up your statements with your own data, but it of course also often makes sense to cite high authority sources, and it makes sense to use strong internal linking and keeping your content up to date. These are all optimization efforts that, according to studies, etc., and in our own experiences, correlate with being more visible in the search results, and specifically LLMs. Also, yes, all these optimizations definitely make sense because we make it easier for LLMs like Google's AI mode to find and cite our content. This is the newest model, as said, has just been rolled out in the US, probably coming to Europe soon. And we've already got some information from Google, etc., on how Google AI mode, so the newer conversational AI-driven search interface, works. And how it works is that it uses kind of this fan-out technique, meaning large prompts are being broken down into smaller queries. And Google then, searches for these smaller queries and selects a relevant passage for each query. And in the end, all the answers to these queries are summarizes, and the sources are referenced. And that goes in hand kind of with this passage first authoring, meaning in the long run, it's not our goal to rank specific URLs for really specific keywords anymore, but the whole your whole content universe that you have on your website, but also of course on third-party platforms. There you should look to answer people's questions, be most visible for the most important queries. Yes, and ideally, add as much expertise and experience, in short, EEAT, as possible. And of course, optimizing our website has always been the most important part. It's still going to be really relevant, I think, for LLMs. But there are also so many other ways that we can get our content in front of customers. And as shown before, it's not just about ranking directly, but influencing external sources as well. And so we also recommend to, repurpose content for social media platforms, join discussions in forums and chats and communities, as I've done here on Reddit. So I actually did some audience research for a client, found a thread on Reddit where they were exactly looking for their solution, and then was able to drop a recommendation there, and it actually resulted in a phone call and a lead for my client. Yes, apart from that, sign up for relevant comparison platforms, identify partnership opportunities. So with listicles, you do see, or currently we see, that listicles are a format that ChatGPT and Google, etc., are using heavily to influence or inform the answers. And what I usually do is just I reach out to sometimes even competitors and go like, hey, I've seen that you've written this listicle. I've written one here too. I've already included you in our list. Would you mind including me as well? And currently this has worked quite well. Apart from that, you can, of course, also write guest blogs, run your own newsletter, join a podcast, and even run ads. And that's specifically important for, like, if you're investing now in product-led content, ads, that's really important at the end of the customer journey. feel free to run ads and bring more traffic and qualified searchers to these landing pages, to your product pages, your alternative pages, etc., etc. And yes, when it comes to deciding where to start, I would always say start at the end of the customer journey. So make sure your base is covered. That you have your product content, your product-led content, before you venture into creating thought leadership content. Same thing goes for distribution and optimization. I'd say start with your technical SEO foundation. Make sure that LLMs can actually access your website, can read all your content before you go into your distribution and optimization. But of course, it always depends on you, your website, what you've been working on in the past, in which industry you're in, etc. And if you're unsure of okay, where should I begin? Should I start measuring? Should I invest in product-like content? And how do I do it? Feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help out and map out your website and your current status quo, and then identify the biggest levers and opportunities together. So thanks a lot for bearing with me. If there are any questions, reach out on LinkedIn. That's Marco, last name Schlauri, Schlauri. You find me there on a daily basis. I'd love to engage with you. You can also write me an email, marco@digitalleverage.ch, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. Thank you.